Great morning, humans. Great morning, world. This is your boy, Dr. J.C. Doornick, and welcome to another edition, live edition of the Make Sense with Dr. J.C. podcast. Today's morning rise up, this episode I call Bad Ideas. So sit with that for a second, think about what that means for you. But it's all based on this concept and something that I heard the other day, and that's what we're going to unpack today, where it was actually Sam Harris. He said this. He says, I don't think all of our chaos and mayhem has much to do with bad people doing bad things. And think about how many times we think about that. He says, I feel it's more related to good people, insinuating that all people are good, or at least normal people, whatever you want to call them, under the influence of bad ideas. And I just love that topic. So we are going to unpack that today. But I want to welcome you to the Make Sense with Dr. J.C. Doornick podcast. And as a reminder, this podcast, our podcast, covers topics that expand human consciousness and performance. On the Make Sense podcast, we acknowledge that it's who you are that determines how well what you do works. Very important concept for the new year. And that indicates that you might need to work on the who a little bit more than the do, and also identifies the idea that when we change the way we look at things, the things that we look at begin to change. So I want to welcome you to the uprising of the sleepwalking masses and welcome you to the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast. And as a reminder, the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast is sponsored in large part, by the Make Sense Academy, a private community that we started, my wife and I and some friends, that offers all the business mindfulness and everything that you're looking for in coaching, as well as the tools and strategies that you need to stop simply going through life and start growing through life. Check out the Make Sense Academy on the school platform, risk-free with a money-back guarantee. For more information, just comment or DM or send us a smoke signal with the words "Make Sense" and receive a personal invite to come see if it is what you've been looking for. And I'll see you inside. So welcome. We're in the live format, so I'll say hi to a couple of people. This will not end up in the cleaned up podcast version, which ends up being a shorter version for those of you that like that. So great morning, Kathy. Great morning, Chris. Great morning, Deb. Great morning to everybody out there. And it is a great morning if you've decided that it is. So we're going to talk about bad ideas here today. So let me preface this. And also, if you're watching this in the live at 11 a.m. Eastern today, this is December 2nd, I'm going to be interviewing the author of one of my all-time favorite books. Such a simple premise, but so powerful and perfectly placed for what's going on in the world right now. And that would be the amazing Bob Berg, the co-author of this book called The Go-Giver. God, I hope that you tune in for that. So let's talk about bad ideas. So like I said, I heard Sam Harris the other day speaking about the apparent state of confusion and chaos. And I want to preface that. I like to just step back and observe not only my behavior, but the behavior of humanity in general, because I like to identify how I'm responding. I mean, that's a very big topic with me. I like to look at how I'm perceiving and responding to things. And typically when I share that with you, I typically get feedback saying, oh man, that's exactly what's going on. And what's interesting about that? The reason why what I'm about to share that I'm experiencing and observing might be what you're experiencing and observing is because we all come from the same thing. Like we have this big farce, this idea that we're all different and separate and unique. And I mean, I know that we have our own unique flares, but we're all interconnected, call it Wi-Fi, but just like the roots under the earth connect all of nature together, we're like a hands-free version of that, but we're all connected because we all come from the same place. So that's a big, big false assumption that we're all separate and unique. So that's why this might come as no surprise. But one of the observations that I'm making in my own life, but I'm seeing it out there as well, because it just came to my mind when I said the word chaos. And tell me in the comments, if you're watching this on a live stream, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or whatever. If you comment, I'll be able to see that and interact. Great morning, Monica. Great morning, Lori. So the observation that I'm making in myself and others right now is that there's just way too many things on my plate for me to actually execute. I very often feel like, and I call that chaos. I very often feel like I put them on my plate. I must need to do them. But if I really rationally and logically look at all of the things, the ideas that I have on the table, there's really no way I could do them all and maintain some sort of harmonious life with the things that matter most. So that's the observation that I make. So tell me if you're in any way, shape, or form experiencing that as well. But if you back up even further from that and kind of say, interesting. Another thing that I notice is that there's a very good explanation why humanity right now is just always feeling like they're playing catch up. And that would probably be connected to the fact that technology, although it is giving us the capabilities like ChatGPT and AI and all of these amazing tools, like this interface that I'm using to speak to you today, it's making it so easy for us to, execute on things, which is great. But we can take the creative process and create an idea and start a project like 12 to 20 times a day. Think about that. And then we're expected to follow through and finish that. Kathy says she feels the way too at times. So I just want to say, maybe I'll give you a little bit of a tactical strategy for hope, is allow yourself to just handle one thing at a time. I love the fact that I can just sit down every day and take any idea that comes across my mind and put it on the table, right, as something. But I think that the skill set that we need to all adapt is the idea of picking favorites, or picking the most important concepts and ideas that we are writing down and executing on them. So if you're unconscious to that idea that you get to choose what you do and what takes precedent, and maybe you can look at how it connects and supports your goals and dreams in life or you as a person, you're going to be treading water, right? Because it's so easy to get started on a new website, a new company, a new idea, a new project. So there you go. I'm giving that to you. Monica says, staying focused on one thing is the challenge. Yes, but a challenge that is well worth it. The juice is worth the squeeze with that challenge, my friend. So as I said, I heard Sam Harris, who, has a wonderful podcast. He has an app called Waking Up. He has a book called Making Sense, oddly enough. I don't know who stole it from who, but his podcast is great too. So I always recommend. He's pretty controversial, which I like. But Sam Harris was speaking about the apparent confusion and chaos in the world and how we have reached some sort of a crucial state, like a tipping point, critical mass, where we have 8 billion people on this planet moving in different directions. So that was an observation that he makes. And that's kind of why that triggered that little rant that I just gave. I can see that too. And they're not only moving in different directions, but they're all believing in different things and acting out because they all believe in different things, naturally, organically acting out against one another as a result of their differences. So do you notice that? Do you notice that? So while this is going on, at the same time, falling asleep at the wheel of identifying one another's indifferences, meaning falling asleep at the wheel, humanity right now, at identifying, this is another challenge, Monica, falling asleep at identifying that we're all so much more similar than different. Do you notice that? So the apparent chaos right now is a result downstream, I can see, from humanity's incapability of waking up and saying we're all one. That's why I very often wear that hat that, is representing this event that I'm doing, Creative Con, February 2025. Come see me there. That's an amazing event. We're going to talk about some of this stuff, but we're all one. We all come from the same thing, right? we've made up a lot of stories along the way, and we're so attached to our stories that we have this ability to walk around and think that we know exactly what's going on. But any human, you included, me included, if they allowed themselves to stop for just 1 second, they can identify that they don't know nothing. They don't know nothing. So that's what's funny about all these differences that are causing us to act up against one another is they're all made up. They're all made up, and potentially in light of this topic, bad ideas. So I feel it's more related to good people, or at least normal people under the influence of bad ideas. And I agree. So this is a very interesting observation I see taking place, like I said, simultaneously as the human race has in fact become just that. Now listen to what I'm saying. As the human race has become, in fact, just that, a race amongst humans. Now, that's not the way that I was raised thinking that human race, or identifying and defining human race, right? It was just referred to us, but now I can see that there is a race going on amongst each other. On one hand, we could observe that technological advances, that claim to be making our life easier, have the human race racing to keep up with it. In the old days, right, of the caveman, natural selection played out differently. The idea of only the strong survive was connected to physical abilities. This is another interesting thing about some of these bad ideas that have us in a tizzy, right? We used to survive, and the survival of the fittest, natural selection, only the strong survive, was attached to physical abilities, intelligence, common sense, and even good looks, right? The alpha male, the alpha female. Although natural selection is playing out in this current reality, because it always is, right, with some similar traits that I just said, it seems that it is also split in many directions, like I just shared. Many humans are racing, like I said, many human races as well, that have us becoming progressively more different and moving further from the fact that we are all the same. That's what's insane about what's going on, is we're just almost like the stars, because of the Big Bang, are moving away from us. We're all moving away further and further from each other, forgetting that we all come from the same place. It reminds me of a scenario where a young man or a woman can grow up in a society under the same roof, and have the same type of siblings, right? And grow up in the same house, like I did with my sister, and however, they could each identify and latch onto a bad idea that would cause them, or trigger them, prompt them to devote their entire life to it in some sort of radical fashion. And that could also be a thought that came through your head. It could be delivered to you through social media with consistency. Be very careful in 2025. Well, I shouldn't tell you what to do, but an interesting idea would be to be very, very careful, or at least acknowledge that what it is that you're consuming with regularity is appearing to be something that you very much think is the right thing to consume. But know this, whatever you're consuming with regularity and not consuming anything else, right? You're probably closed-minded and focused in one sort of an area, one sort of an algorithm of consumption. It ends up being what you assume. So that's why two people can grow up in the same household and latch on to different ideas and get radical about them. You could get radical about not being radical, to the point where he or she no longer accepts their parents, siblings, or community, or race and country that they were brought up in as theirs. We see that going on right now. How is that possible, that we can get to a point where we can look at like our sibling or our parents and say, those are not mine, right? There's no way I came from them. Anyway, I've done that in joking before, but not to the radical extent. In fact, they can reach a point of dissociation in this world just because they've latched onto a bad idea. They're good people, but they're radicalized, right? And I'm not just talking about terrorism here. I'm talking about anything. It could be politics or religion, right? When we get radicalized, meaning we're not open to anything else, the right protect switch is closed. So they can reach a point of dissociation where they can deem their own family and friends that supported them and gave them the opportunity to learn what they're now radicalized about. They can look at them as the enemy now. Isn't that interesting? So that means that any one of us can latch on to a bad idea. Doesn't make us a bad person. Any good person can latch onto a bad idea and completely change the fabric of everything that they at one time thought was important. So what does that mean? When I wake up in the morning and I kiss my lucky stars and I express gratitude, I always like to focus on the things that matter most. My family, my health. I'm in that conscious state right now. I'm focusing on my health, my family, my children, spending my time wisely. I got to make money and I got to advance in certain ways, but I'm trying to learn instruments and travel and all of that stuff. But at any time, I could latch on to a bad idea and go on a completely different trajectory. Do you have any friends that just all of a sudden ghosted you and just out of nowhere came up with some sort of an idea and labeled you as something maybe that's part of it, and they just disappear and you don't even have any idea how that happens? So tell me in the chat, have you ever had that experience? I've had it many times. It's like, that's when I start smelling under my arm, or you automatically wonder if you've done something. But that's what it is it's a good person. And it's important to recognize that they're a good person, because that's where you can forgive for they know not what they do. It's a good person that's latched on to a bad idea. I love that idea. I love knowing about this so I can be cautious of it. Although this might seem like some sort of a radical example of how a bad idea can transform a human into someone who sees the world completely differently and acts out in support of it in a potentially harmful way sometimes, we can see the same process taking place all around us in basic format, right? You don't have to look at this as a terrorist thing or some sort of like really radical thing. It could be just a friend that's just not talking to you anymore. In fact, in some ways, we can see it in ourselves too, can't we? Can't we? Have you ever latched onto a bad idea and it's just thrown you into a tizzy? So as a result of this consistent daily consumption, and that's what I want to highlight today. Right now, you're consuming what I have to say, and I just want to make sure that you understand the Make Sense podcast, the Make Sense Academy, everything. My intention behind it is to have no opinion. My opinion is my opinion, and I keep it to myself. We all have them, but I'm just making observations. And if you become an open and curious person, meaning you allow yourself to look at things through different lenses, I don't even wear lenses anymore, just to remind myself not to be controlled by lenses that were given to me. But if you can become open and curious and look at things through a different vantage point, you're not going to struggle as much as you are. And you might identify that you've been misled in certain ways. No need to cause blame there. And there's better ways of doing things. And one of those better ways might be to take a step back from trying to get everything done and just picking your favorites. So as a result of the consistent daily consumption of news, social media, movies, I just saw Gladiator, by the way. What a great movie. The second Gladiator, almost as good as the first, dare I say. But all of this stuff, movies, gossip, we are consistently being presented with bad ideas. I want to give you the opportunity, give you the keys, right? The potential today, permission to identify and point out bad ideas, or at least contemplate, is this a good idea or a bad idea? And all you have to do is look through it through some sort of a sorting filter. In our Make Sense Academy, if you come in, we teach this concept of building a sorting filter. And that's how you can get better and better over time at identifying what's in support and what's not in support. But we're being presented with bad ideas all the time. Yet as a result of the forces of things like social proof, where the herd seems to move in a certain way and latch onto that same bad idea, that bad idea starts to look like a good idea. We become susceptible of being persuaded to move towards an idea as a result of being confused or at a crossroads ourselves. Do you want to know how you start a cult? A cult is when a charismatic leader could be me, could be you, gets a bunch of people that are at a crossroads. They're confused. When human beings are confused and they don't know where to turn, they're very susceptible. What degree of susceptibility do you have to a bad idea to latch onto and call reality? I've done that before, but I'm aware of it now. I'm allowing myself. This is the kind of work that we're doing in the Make Sense Academy. And remember, it's who you are that determines how well what you do works. So do you understand why you might be out there doing the do, which ends up being sometimes a lot of do, but you haven't worked on the who? And the who might just be somebody that allows themselves to take the right protect switch off and look at things. I'm going to look at it from different advantages or different vantage points. This is what I'm trying to teach my children. Does this make sense to you? Are you enjoying this? So all of us are capable of making bad choices that have been prompted by bad ideas that we thought or we were persuaded into thinking that were good at that time. Remember, any decision that you've ever made you thought was a good decision. You wouldn't make a bad decision. Did anyone wake up this morning and say, I'm going to make a bad decision? No. So what's the real problem here? It's not necessarily a fault of the human race, right? We're just doing the best that we can, natural selection and all that. For the most part, until we have a discussion and awakening like we're having right now, we know not what we do. That's why we forgive people. So I want to congratulate and honor and respect you for allowing yourself to stay in this conversation for this far. And if you know somebody that might benefit from it, share it. Share the YouTube channel, share this talk, share the podcast, because that's the shorter version will come out soon. I feel that technology has really taken the reins and is already leading us where it wants to. I don't know if you ever look and identify. We keep on saying we're going to build some sort of AI that thinks like a human. I mean, technology is way more in control of us than you can imagine, right? It's interesting to see all of the attention right now being devoted to the advancements of things like AI, artificial intelligence. The notion is that we will one day adopt the ability to think and act like a human. Or I'm sorry, the notion is that it will one day adopt the ability to think and act like you and I, like a human, adopt its own consciousness, thinking on its feet like you and I have, which sometimes gets us in trouble. Who's to say it won't get them in trouble, right? I often wonder if we are in fact the creators of AI, and this is a heavy one, but I allow myself to look at everything. Are we the creators of AI, or are we just the workers commissioned to build it out? I mean, you could say that's crazy, but I could also say that what you think in thinking that it's crazy is crazy. I think it's crazy to not consider things in life. So there. So maybe we're actually here trying to figure out your life's purpose. Maybe you're just an employee of some sort of higher intelligence that's commissioned to build out something that's going to replace us. If that's the case, then who's our boss? Are you the boss of your reality? Well, I can tell you, if you don't allow yourself to step out of this idea that you've handed the keys of trust over to your program, the regularly scheduled program, if you don't have the ability to become open and curious and look at things through any lens that you choose, well, then you are an employee and your boss is the system. I don't know who runs the system. I can tell you it's not the president, because somebody's running the president as well, right? Is it a human that is leading this charge to develop technology to the place where it has no longer a need for humans? Why would a human create something that gets rid of the need for humans? I don't think that's the case. There are humans that think they are leaders in charge of this movement, but there's no way. There's no way. It's way bigger. I see them as those that, God, how could I put this into a, okay. So if you look at the Holocaust, what's interesting about the Holocaust is that there were certain Jews that were given higher responsibilities to like move other Jews into the terrible situations. And they had this notion that they were leaders, that they were special. Of course, we know what happened to them too. So that's not too different than the leaders of today, right? They think that they're in power. We're all the same. We're all the same. We all have the ability to make the same decisions. And I think the most powerful decision you can make is just to think for yourself. Think for yourself. And the only way you can do that is to learn how to pause. We teach this in what I call the interface response system. Come check out the Make Sense Academy. That you're going to become armed and equipped to really become the dominant force shot caller of your life. But if you can learn how to pause your programmed way of thinking, which you've gotten from other people, you're going to see things through a different place. And it's pretty cool. You might be scared of it, but it's not scary. It's actually really cool. So those people thought they were special and unique, not knowing that their time was coming too. Just like the leaders, all of our time is coming. Nobody gets special treatment, right? If you want special treatment, treat yourself differently. Treat yourself special. So who is our boss? Is it technology itself? Some sort of superior intelligence that is governing the whole thing? I don't know. I can't prove it, but I entertain it. Or perhaps some sort of superhuman power in the universe. Do you know that the universe has no end? I just read something today that NASA just identified a new galaxy. I forget the name of it. That is 30 million light years away. And you know what's funny? I showed my daughter that this morning and I go, you know what's really crazy about that? And she goes, what? I go, well, first of all, there's billions of like planets and stars in that one galaxy. But what's crazy is that you can go on 30 million light years past it and past it and past it. There's no edge to the universe. And here we are having this conversation right now and thinking that we're special. I think we should just have a better time today and be good to each other, right? And don't do anything that harms others, but enjoy your life a little bit. Step back from the things that are stressing you out. Or perhaps the whole idea is nonsense. I always invite you to just think like, hey man, you're crazy. Step away from it and do whatever it is that you feel is right today. I'm okay with it. Maybe it's all nonsense and everything will just work out in the end as it always does, right? Well, what happens in the end? How does it work out? I don't know. My daughter asked me the other day, says, what do you think happens after we die? And I said, I assume it's the same experience of what it was like before we were born. And she was like, I'm out of here. So that's the inside the box way of thinking that I'm thinking about. And right now I'm not interested in staying inside the box and just staying comfortable and just handing the keys of trust over. I don't think that's what my little special time that I've been given was for. I don't necessarily know who created the box, to be honest with you. I just know it wasn't me that created the box. So I'm choosing to allow myself to look outside the box and consider some pretty miraculous ideas myself. And I'm going to write them down, but I'm also going to make sure I don't try to do them all at once, right? Because that's the risk that, you take when you allow yourself to think outside the box. You can easily get overwhelmed. It could be scary to you, right? When you stray from the herd doesn't like that, right? That's why the herd will try to take you down when you start to elevate and do something extraordinary, but that's to be expected. So if the herd's trying to take you down, you're probably doing something extraordinary. So good for you. We've all been taught that it's bad. It's a bad idea to stray from the herd, haven't we? Which means that it's a bad idea to challenge the ideas of the herd. But I can tell you something right now. This is coming live at the beginning of December of 2024. Who knows what? Maybe somebody's listening to this audio recording in 1,000 years. Who knows? So I always like to give a timestamp. But the herd is running in a direction right now that has been dictated by an idea, for the most part, isn't it? If there are 500 caribou in a plane, if you want a visual, and just one of them gets spooked by a tumbleweed in the distance that it thinks it's some sort of a lion hunting them, right? The entire herd will react to that spook and stampede away from it. I see the human race doing that right now, and they're unaware of it, just like the rest of the caribou. This is the herd mentality. So I like to dispute and question the herd as to why they are moving in a direction. I'm careful how I do it, but I see that they're moving in a direction based on an idea. So you will find that their answers to justify their actions are simply the answers that they were programmed to give you. With the bad idea comes the defining answers, the cognitive bias, the way of protecting that idea. It comes with it. It's in the package like batteries, right? By the creator of the bad idea. That's how, once again, cults start. Why am I writing this? Well, I guess it's a combination of concern and curiosity, but also at the same time, excitement. And what am I excited about? I'm excited that I finally woke up. And that's what I'm inviting you to do, is to wake up and look under the hood, smell the coffee, come check out the Make Sense Academy, where we allow these kind of conversations to just flourish in every direction that we want. And then we take all of those awakenings and insights and turn them into structured advancement of whatever it is that you're trying to create, and provide you the tools to do it. Come check it out. If you don't like it, I'll Venmo you the money. But I love and appreciate you all. And for those of you that stayed and got something out of it, I'd love to know you better. And for all of you that watch this and say he's crazy, I get it. I would have said the same thing a long time ago before I was awake. So love and appreciate you. Have an amazing day. I'm so excited about your possibilities and potential. And just come check out the Make Sense Academy. Come check out our affiliates. Follow the Instagram at Dr. JC Doornick, the podcast Makes Sense with Dr. JC Doornick podcast, and all that jazz. Love and appreciate you. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.